Hello everybody and welcome to a very exciting video for me as we are getting ready to near the release of HangarControl. I figured I would get you guys started with some tutorial videos on how to operate the software. So we're going to talk everything about what is currently there, what's going to be there at release, and how to get you guys up and running. So stay tuned. Super excited for this one. Very, very nervous, but let's get into it. If you are interested in any of my tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides as well as any future guides that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below. All right, my friends, so real quick, let's just start with a few things. Today, we are focusing on the primary function of HangarControl, which is control bindings. However, at the time of release, there's going to be multiple other options here, which we have already discussed some of that in previous videos. Make sure you guys go back and watch that. Second thing, there will be full documentation for this software at the time of release. These videos are just meant to be a supplement, if you will, an addition to. They are not going to be the primary source of your information on how to operate HangarControl. Okay, I'm not going to be those guys who think that just because I make a couple tutorial videos that cover 26 topics in a single video that people should be able to find them. Okay, so a couple the other thing is the yellow highlight around the software. That's because we're still in development mode. Don't worry, that will not be there when it comes time for you guys to check out the software. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with how we get started with HangarControl. So the first thing that we're going to be doing, guys, when you first launch the software, you want to go to settings. Now, all of these views may change as time moves on and we get closer and closer to the release. This is going to be very specific to Microsoft Flight Simulator, but there's a couple others that are very generalized as well. First off, you can see you guys have a profiles folder and a calibration folder. The default will default to your username and the documents folder. However, you can change these to whatever you would like, wherever you would like to store all this stuff. The nice thing about this, the reason why I put these into the documents folder is to make them easily accessible in case you need to back them up, you need to reinstall, whatever it may be. I wanted it to be very easy for you guys to export these stuff out. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to come down to our 2020 and 2024 for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and we're going to set our community folder. So here I'm going to go into mine, which is going to be B, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and of course we're going to select the community folder. Boom. Next thing is logging. By default, the logging is turned off. If for any reason you guys are running into major errors, you're crashing, it pops up on you, whatever happens, and you think it's just not behaving well, you can set the number of days that you want logging to save. If you want to have this on full time, by the way, that's totally fine in case you just happen to run over things. So if you were to set it, for example, for 3 days, it will maintain 3 days worth of logging as long as you enable the logging, which we go here. And then if you open the folder, it will automatically take you to the log directory and you would just capture the most recent of logging. And then if for whatever reason I needed it, or if you ran into an error, you could send that to me. Now at the time of release, there will be a live reporting option as well within the software that it will generate errors and send them to me directly. So this is not a requirement. It's just another step in case you wanted to see what was going on, or in case I asked you for this specifically if you needed help. Okay, so we're going to set that. You have your light and dark mode. I'm always going to be one to operate on dark mode. Now, you can see that SimConnect says connected. That's because I've already done this last part. After you set your community folder, you will want to save. Settings should come up as saved. At that time, what you should get then there is, if we go back to our community folder, is you guys should see HangarControl Bridge. This is for the LVAR bridge. This is not required for SimConnect to work, but it is required for LVARs, which you guys will see some of that today as we go through the configuration here of the TBM 850. Now you guys can see that Microsoft Flight Simulator is loaded behind me. Your first time setting all of this stuff up, make sure Microsoft Flight Simulator is closed. Otherwise, at the time that you do this and the bridge is then installed, you will need to restart Microsoft Flight Simulator in order for that to take effect. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep on going. We're going to close that. So for the most part, we're pretty much done here at this point. at least in this current state. Again, we'll have other applications and things that will be here, such as the application launcher, the mods hanger. There's going to be a few others that are going to be attached to it. I just haven't joined them all together yet. We're in the final testing stages, so that's why everything is still separate. Makes it easier to test. So we're going to go into control bindings. Coming into control bindings, the first thing that you're going to have is your hangers. Hangers are going to be your simulators or games. Guys, this is not restricted to just simulators. This software has the ability to send keyboard commands. So any game or simulator on PC that has the ability to be controlled via keyboard commands, so Microsoft Flight Simulator, X-Plane, DCS World, American Truck Simulator, any other game you want that if it uses keyboard commands, it can be used with hanger control. Okay, and you can even set axis, like controller axis, Xbox controllers, things like that. You can set their axis to generate keyboard strikes. We'll talk about that at a later time. So here we're going to add Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, as that's what we are using for today's demonstration. Then in here, we're going to come in, and here in the profile, this is going to be your profile specific, however you want to do this. You could do this generalized, say you wanted a general aviation or a commercial one, or you can bind them by specific aircraft. There's also another couple ways that you can do this. Let's say you want to do like a basic profile where you set up most of your primary stuff, your batteries, your lights, landing gear, flap controls, things that are going to be used just about on every single profile. Okay, you could bind that, and then later on, as you wanted to refine it to an aircraft, you could then hit duplicate and name it to what you want. Let's say we did this one for the Cessna, I don't know, C-172, right? We could do something like that. We're going to leave that here because I'm going to show you why a little bit later. It's pretty cool. Now, the last thing that we're going to do here, in my case, is we're going to bind everything for the TBM 850. And then you guys will see if you wanted to set up your basic, it all goes through the same steps, right? But we're going to make this one actually function for our TBM 850 here. You can see the aircraft is identified up here up top. And one of the really cool things that we can do here as well is we can bind this profile to the aircraft. So we're going to bind to aircraft. And if you right click on it, whoa, we got a little bit of a typo there. That was new. Let's try that again. Okay, I'm going to have to take a look and see what that's about. It looks like, oh, I guarantee I know what that's about. It's reading an old config file on top of everything else. We'll go and find that later on. But the bigger important part here is that you can see title black square TBM 850 red from this profile, or I can also clear this aircraft from the profile. Now I can bind multiple aircraft to the profile. It's not restricted to just one. By the way, again, I'm going to mention this real quick, guys, one more time. If we clear that, actually I just saw it. There we go. It was just an old binding. I wiped out the profiles, but I'll have to go back and fix that and find out why it did that. But anyway, this is how it's supposed to look, minus the white box. We'll be taking care of that too. Like I said, we're in final testing and cleanup. But we can bind the aircrafts to the profile. Long story short, we can clear an individual aircraft from the profile, or we can clear all aircraft from a profile. Now, the reason why this is cool is because once you have bound an aircraft to a profile, if I were to switch, for example, to the Cessna 172, and I had done the same thing, and then back to the TBM 850, the profile indicated, or the active profile indicated by this green dot, will automatically switch. So if I had a profile bound for the Cessna 172 and I was flying it and decided to jump into my TBM 850, the profile would automatically switch over to the TBM 850 once it detected that it was loaded. So makes it a lot easier. You don't have to worry about switching profiles. So our next step in this process is we're going to go into calibrate axis. So to save a bit of time and a bit of frustration that could possibly happen, this software has the ability to use its own. Now by default, it will default to the Windows USB, but once you calibrate in here, this software's calibration will take priority. Now, you often can run into certain devices like a WinWing panel or something like that that maybe has an axis on it, but you don't want to calibrate it, or you just don't ever want to use it in this particular software. There's a lot of reasons why you may want to do this next part. Now, I'm not too concerned about the demo for this. I know that my joystick is calibrated, so I'm going to show you guys with this. Right now, we're using my Cadet Aeromax from Virpil on my desk, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to hide it from the calibration menu. I don't want to have to see it, right? I just want the devices that I'm actually interested in calibrating and saving in here. Now, if for any reason I do want that back, I can hit show hidden devices and you can see it brings it back. You can see it shows hidden. I can right click and show in calibration menu. Okay, uncheck the show in hidden and now they're both here. Everything is good to go. But let's start with our Bravo. Very, very simple calibration process. So I do want to show you guys something that's pretty cool. You can see this axis here is actually the second one in from the left on the Bravo. Now eventually I will have some device specific presets where you won't have to worry about this, but on occasion it does run into this. So what I did is, like I said, this one here is the second axis from the left. Okay, so if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, starting from the left, moving to right. Okay, this is the second one. So if I wanted to, all I have to do is bring it down. Oops, wrong one. And it automatically saves this. You don't have to worry about hitting save. And there's two different windows, and I'll show you guys the other one where you can do this. So first, I'm going to set these up. Put these in the right order. And this is just to demonstrate if you are ever in the situation and you don't like the layout, it makes it much easier to know where you're at. Oops, did it again. I got to stop doing that. Okay, let's leave that one. Next thing on this one. Oh, how did that one get way up there? Let's move this one down. Oh, this should actually be the last one. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. So boom, boom. Yep, there's those. That one should be down one more. Down. There we go. Now we're in order. Okay. So that's automatically saved. You don't have to worry about saving that particular part, but now let's calibrate. Now, if we want to go calibrate, you can see you have 5 seconds. We're just going to move it forward, move it aft, and wait. Calibration complete. And we're just going to walk through these. I do recommend doing them one at a time. And you can see you get a full calibration number once it's set. And they should all be the 6535. Or 65535. Okay, we'll save that. And since we're here, why not? Let's calibrate the x-axis. Calibrate the y-axis. Find the z-axis. There it is. Let's move that one up. This has a twist grip is why it is doing that. Okay, so we'll calibrate. And then it also has the stick axis. So we'll take this one and move it up. Calibrate it. Now, something I did notice here. Got close, but that was full depression, so I don't know how much harder it wants me to squeeze. So that's an issue with the Virpil, interestingly enough. All right, so we've got that one. All right, those are all calibrated. Perfect, and we'll hit save. So there we go, we got our calibration done. So now coming back over here, now we're going to choose the devices per the profile. You must have a profile created before you can choose devices. Now again, if you go to your basic profile and you know that there are controls that you're always going to be using, you can do all of this first, assign it to the basic, and then duplicate, and those devices will copy over. Okay, but so we're going to choose our devices. In our case today, we're just using the Bravo and the Virpil. Now, cool thing is, if you're like me, you may have multiple hardwares of the same thing. Or you may have things that are labeled like, for example, Arduino. Sometimes you'll see that where it doesn't actually tell you what it is, and then you got to fiddle and figure it out. All right, sorry about that, guys. I had something in my damn throat. It wasn't going away. So you may have multiple devices that are the same thing or something that you need to rename so it's better recognized. You can select it, rename. We're going to call this Desk Bravo. So an example of these are actually my Virpil rudder pedals. I have two of the VPC Ace pedals. But ironically enough, my desk pedals are not plugged in at the moment because I actually got a stand-up desk, so I'm still figuring all that out. So once you get that, you save changes, boom, there they are. Now it's time for the good stuff. Let's get into binding controls. All right, to bind our controls, we're just going to select this. You can do a couple different things. You can remove the device from the profile by right-clicking them. You can configure it, or you can simply double-click it. So here is another location where you are able to arrange your axis. Okay. All right, so now let's start with binding our axis. There's a couple really cool ways that we can do this here. So I'm going to move this off screen for just a second so I can get to it. Let's start with our throttles and everything else. So first we're going to bind. And in the binding menu, we have a ton of different options. You guys are going to see a lot of them here. And I'm going to do my best to go through all of our different abilities here. Okay, so I think the easiest way to demo this is first to just start with the basics. So first we're just going to add. Now I'm going to work my way sort of from left to right. This line here allows you to just simply select the row, and from there you can move it up, move it down if you have a number of rows. Okay, or you can remove it as long as the checkbox is set. Then you also have ability to segment the axis. So if you wanted to have, for example, a flap control on your axis, you could do a between. And let's say between 0 and, I don't know, 10% in both directions, we wanted to either send a keyboard command, or if we wanted to, send a sim connect, we could do a sim connect. All right, but this is an option. And then the rearm is when I enter this range, 0 to 9%, I'm going to trigger the command. Rearm is how much percent do you want the axis to continue to travel before it can trigger that again. What this does, the idea here, so for example, I would want this to be at 11% if I did not want to trigger the same activity again while moving through this range. I hope that makes sense. If I set this at, say, 5%, and the axis is currently at 0, and I move the axis to 5, or as soon as I move the axis, like you can see here, and as soon as it crosses that 0%, basically as soon as it moves, it's going to trigger whatever command is here. And then once it passes 5%, because that's the rearm, it will trigger that action again until we cross out of the 10% range, and then it can no longer be triggered because we're out of the parameters. So if I want that to happen, then I'm going to set this to 11%. It has to travel 11% before this action can be triggered again. That way, no matter what, as long as I'm in the 0 to 10% range, the action can only complete once. If I leave the 10% range and then come back into the 10 to 0% range, it will trigger again, but can't happen again because we have not crossed the threshold one more time. I hope that makes sense. But the idea behind this was you can set an axis to complete a series of keyboard commands. Okay, so, or not just keyboard commands, any kind of command. And you can also set it in direction. If you want the axis to only, if you want this to only happen when the axis is going forward or going up, as you see here, then it will do that action until it crosses the 10% threshold. But coming back down, it will not, because we only have it set to the up direction. So you could have it doing something a set of tasks going forward, and you could have the axis doing something completely different going down. So it makes it kind of cool. I hope, like I said, I just tried to think out of the box, think of a bunch of different scenarios that people may find cool about this software. Okay, now, so we've already gone through that part. Now let's get into, we're going to want both directions for what we're doing here. I'm going to uncheck the between because we don't want that. I'm just going to set that to 100, even though I don't really need to. Now, we obviously are going to bind for our throttle. So I'm going to select pick because we've selected Sim Connect. And here I'm going to hit throttle. Now, there's a common mistake that people make even with SPAD.next or something different. You see this axis throttle set and you go, bam, that's the one I want. It's not. What we are actually going to be looking for is just throttle set. And I will try to remember to have this in the documentation because I know this can be a gotcha that can frustrate people. But I'm going to show you guys what will happen if you don't. Okay, if we simply go to axis throttle set and I tell it to use the axis range and I say okay, I hit save. Now, one of the things, by the way, this is a good time to show you guys this. If you notice, as I move the axis, nothing happens. This service has the ability to, you have to start the service. And the reason why is because of the keyboard commands. The ability to send keyboard commands now that uses virtual keys. And for those of you who are into programming, you'll understand that, but it also can send raw text as well. And so how the keyboard commands work is it will send the keyboard commands to any targeted window. So for example, if you had a keyboard command of the letter C or D, whatever, and you had Notepad targeted, Notepad was the focused window, you would actually see that letter pop up on there. Okay, now, so I put a stop gate to prevent you from inadvertently sending keyboard commands to windows you didn't want. So we're gonna hit start service, and you can see there the throttle moved. Now that's a big indicator. I did this on purpose so that way you guys could see this. Okay, if you notice, our axis needs to be inverted. But bigger thing is, look at the fact that it's only moving about halfway. For 99% of the situations in Microsoft Flight Simulator, when you see axis underscore anything, what it is interpreting is the same principle as your rudder pedals or your joystick. Your joystick or your yoke, it does not matter. Rudder pedals is the easiest way to describe it, but rudder pedals, joysticks, yokes, they all work under the same principle. They are at a center point, and they have an axis to the left and an axis to the right. So the reason why this is working in this behavior is because under this particular setting, it believes that our axis starting point is in the center. Okay, so let me show you how we're going to fix this. We're simply going to go, you can double click that. It should take us back to where we were, but we're just going to search for throttle again. And you can see that it remembers your last search. And it also, when you double click an entry, it takes you to whatever that entry was. I'm looking for something I am not seeing, so let's refine our search because that's going to drive me nuts. There we go. Throttle set is what we want. Now we're going to hit save here again. And now you can see it moves the full range because we're not telling it to use an axis. We are telling it to set this parameter based on our axis. But we still have the problem that it's inverted. It's going the wrong way. So some equipment will do this and some won't. For example, the flight sticks don't seem to have any problems. The yokes don't seem to have any problems. The Bravo, I do have to. So what we can do here is go to Axis Tune, and you can either turn it into a slider if you want. That's not a requirement for this particular fix, but if you want to use a slider, you can. But we're going to invert it, hit OK, bam, you can see it already adjusted and fixed. And we're good to go. So we're done with this one. So now let's just rinse and repeat for our prop. For a prop, I'm going to use this guy right here. And again, we're just going to add, I'm going to do this one a bit faster now. We're going to find SimConnect. We're going to hit pick. We're going to clear our search, and we're going to look for, I believe it's prop set, if I remember correctly. Nope. Is it pitch set? I can't ever remember what it is. I always forget what it is. Oh, did I pass it? Prop pitch. That's what it is. So let's do that. Prop underscore pitch set. There it is. I can see it right there. And we're just going to double click that. Use axis. Boom. And let's see what it's got. Save it. There we go. And it also needs to be inverted. So we'll come in here. Axis tune. Invert. Okay. Now, the one things that I am going to be working on, you should be able to see the activity from this window. I'm not sure when yours truly broke that, but I clearly did. So that's something that I will be addressing. It's not high on the priority list right now, but you guys can see it. So now comes the cool one, the condition lever. For the condition lever, especially in the TBM 850, we are going to be using LVARs. So let me show you how to break it up. This is going to be another one of those cool ways where we can segment it. So I'm going to pick, I think I'm going to use this one. We'll use the far one. So we're going to go bind. We're going to go add again. And this time, I'm going to show you guys, and there's a couple of different ways that I could do this, but in this particular scenario, I'm going to show you guys the segmentation. So we're going to go to, we're going to go between. And let's see here, we have 3 positions, so I'm just going to call this 0 to 30%. Both directions. I want this to happen twice. I want to set it to a 31% movement range. That way we can't trigger it on accident. And not that it would hurt anything, but I'm just going to send the same command. And we're going to go to pick. And here, this is where this gets fun. you have a couple different things we can do. We could either search right here and it would find it, but let's refine it a little bit. We're going to go to LVARs, and then here I'm going to go to black square. Now, as far as the source goes, I want to give you guys the heads up. Some items will work like this. Some items will display. It does not display everything from the black square. It is 100% based on how the developer writes it. For example, you will see here that we have the black square. If I sort by title, the condition lever is, right? You can see that. But if we come back to all for a second, I want to show you guys the crash bar. Oops. See, notice that that's gone. And by the way, for those who are interested, that's the crash bar. Okay, so if we come back to HangarControl and I go to sources any, there it is. LVARs, crash bar. And again, that is, there is no way for me to get around that. That is 100% on the developers and how they write that particular line. So for some things, it's really handy. For some, it's not. I put it in there. It's a benefit when it works, right? So we're going to hit cancel here. We are going to go, oops, I didn't mean to go that far back. Idiot. All right, so now we're going to do something fun. We're going to play around with the LVARs because we need to bind the condition lever on the TBM850. So let's go ahead and get into this. We're going to pick our axis for our condition lever. We're going to use this guy right here. It's the one on the far right. We're going to hit bind. Okay. Now, I did go into axis tune already. I thought I was recording. I wasn't. Forgive me. And I did invert it. I want to make sure it's going the right direction. Now, this is the pretty cool part. So as we get into the axis binding, we have a couple of different ways. You guys already saw the basic axis, right? So now I'm going to show you guys what we were talking about earlier, the segmenting. This is where this gets fun. And you can do this with keyboard commands. You can do it with SimConnect, as we talked about earlier. So I'm going to go between. And let's see here, the condition lever, we have 3 positions. So we're going to do 0 to 30% to start out with. And then, so let's see here, we're just going to delete that, go 30. And by the way, the actual delete key is the easiest way to do that when it tabs over. We're going to go SimConnect. We're going to go pick. And then here, we're going to filter by LVARs. Now with LVARs, I want to make it very clear, guys. If we go into the black square, okay, and we come in here and we hit condition lever, okay, that can be found under the black square. But things like, for example, the crash bar, which is this guy right here, okay, it is not in here. Okay, so we need to go back to source any, and if we want to look for the crash bar, we can do crash bars here. I want you to know my software, SPAD.next, Axonos, we have nothing to do with that. That is 100% the developer and how they write the particular LVAR, how they title it, and this one just happens to be. So this is a nice way to filter by using the black square and whatever else is here, but if you can't find what you're looking for, it may not be in that window. You may just want to search by LVARs and keep the source to any, okay, if you're looking for a specific LVAR. But we're going to sort by title. Oops, I already did that, didn't I? Yep, and we're going to find our condition lever, and we're going to start with 0. It has 3 positions on the condition lever. We're going to start with 0. Is what we're going to set our value at. Now, the other really cool thing about it with SimConnect and the LVARs is you can also enable a condition. For example, if we wanted to hit a modifier where in order for this action to happen, a certain button must be held or is released, depending on what it is, or another status of an LVAR condition must equal something in order for this to work. You guys have a bunch of different ways to do that, and let me know if you run into any problems with those. Also, through this segment, through this editor, you can set it to increment based on an action, decrement based on action, toggle, pulse. There's all kinds of different functionality here that we've put into the software. But for us, we're going to keep this nice and simple. You can see what it breaks down. Condition lever mode, set value to 0. We're not going to use axis. We just want to keep this as is. Rearm, I'm going to keep that as 10%. It doesn't need to really even be there because of what we're doing. We are setting a value anywhere within this range. What rearm is once, so we have this one currently set from 0 to 30. As soon as I move the axis, okay, that trigger, this action is going to fire. What the rearm is how far must the axis travel before this action can fire again? Okay, until we pass the 30% range. But since we're setting a static value, it really doesn't matter. It's not critical for this particular issue. But if you have something that is triggering, let's say you set something between 0 and 30 and you have it triggering more than once and you don't want it to, you need to set this rearm range past its initial trigger. So you would set it to about 30% as well. That way it can only trigger once during this range of travel. All right, so now let's continue on with the next piece. This is where this gets fun. And you can do this with so many different things. Again, keyboard commands, all kinds of stuff. You can probably come up with a bunch of different ways to do this and ways to have fun with it. So we're going to set this one from 31 to 60, right? And just to prove a point, we're going to leave that as is. We're going to hit Sim Connect. We're going to go to Pick. And again, we're going to find that condition lever. In this case, I'm just going to type condition and show you guys a couple of different ways you can find it. There it is. Just double click that again. And this time we do want it to be 1. So we're going to leave that as is. It defaults to 1. And we're going to do one more. We're going to add, go between again. And this one's going to be, we're just going to call this 61 all the way to 100. All right. There's no real point in changing that. You can break this up. We could have done that more evenly, but hell, we live on the edge here. And again, the condition lever is already selected. So we just got to scroll down and find it. And this will be set to 2. Okay, we hit save, and if we roll through our axis, there's 1, 2, bring it back down, and cut off. Makes it super easy. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to show you guys here as we move forward is button binding. Okay, we're going to start with the flaps switch because this sort of makes it the easiest way to demonstrate some cool features. So first, I'm going to find our flap switch button. There's 15 and 16. That doesn't always pulse. I am working on that. If you hold it, it will. Okay. I'm tapping it very quick, so it doesn't always work, but anyway. So first, we're going to start with the flaps down button. That's 15. With button presses, you have a couple of different options to go. We have a short press. Anything less than half a second, it will do this action. Long press, and you can bind all these at the same time if you wanted to. A long press will do something completely different. That's holding it for 1 second or more. Release, I press it, and then when I release it, that's when it will do whatever it will do here. Your hold, this is going to be things, the best example I can give is if you are doing something like DCS World, and you want it for like your machine guns. It's anytime you want to depress the trigger or a button and you want that action to continuously fire. And you can also set the milliseconds at which it's fired, but 50 milliseconds is a really good place to start. Guys, that's milliseconds, okay? Keep in mind, that's 1,000 to equal 1 second, all right? So 50 milliseconds is extremely fast. The other option that you have here, which I will demonstrate here in a minute, is an ability to do sequences. Okay, with a single button press. Have it do a list of actions, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Right now, let's just focus on this one here. So what we're going to want here is we're going to stick with Sim Connect, and we're going to go to Pick, and we're going to do our flaps. Oops. So we're going to go flaps decrease. That's all I want. All right. And again, you have some condition options here as well when it comes to flaps. But we're just going to leave that as is. So flaps decrease. All right. And I'm going to hit save. Make sure that works. That is because I am an idiot. That's why. We didn't want flaps decrease. We want flaps increase. I always think decrease down screws me up constantly. The number of times I have done this during my testing, you guys, is ridiculous. Anyways, so if we hit save, there, that's what we wanted, right? So now let's go into 16, and this is where we're going to have a little bit more fun with 16. We're still going to do our flaps, and this time we do want decrease, and we'll keep it as 1, right? Hit save. There we go. Now, remember TBM has 850 mode, right? So on a long up press, we're going to go Sim Connect. We're going to hit Pick, and we're just going to search for 850. There can't be much of it, right? There we go. And there we go. We're just going to leave that value as 1. That's all we need for this. Now check it out. So we go flaps down. We're on our takeoff flaps. We do our flaps retracted. We've passed our 1,000 feet. Everything's looking great. Let's increase that horsepower and go into 850 mode. I'm going to press and hold button 16. So longer than 1 second. And there you go. So we have we still have our flaps retract. Works just fine. Okay, And then when we're ready to go into 850 mode, up we go. Press and hold. Okay, so really cool stuff, right? Makes it super simple to bind this stuff. That's everything that I tried to do when I designed this software, you guys, was KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? That's what I was telling myself. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't overcomplicate it. Let's keep it easy. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it fast. All right, so now let's show you guys a sequence. Sequences are super cool. All right, I really enjoy the fact that we were able to make this work. Okay, so for sequences, there's a ton of different ways that we can do this, right? There's so many different options when it comes to sequences. Sticking with our TBM 850, one of the things that I'm going to do is we're going to pick the crash bar, our battery, and our generator, right? Those are going to be probably the first three things that we do after we've done our pre-flight, make sure the aircraft's safe for start, right? So let's go ahead and bring those down. All right, and let's set up our sequences. So I wouldn't normally use, well, actually, yeah, I guess I would use it. So we're going to use one of our toggle switches on the Bravo. There we go. We're going to use 34 and 35. 34 is going to bring everything on. 35 is going to shut it all down. So let's go into 34, and now we're going to go to our edit sequence window, and this is where this gets super fun. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add a command. We're not going to set any kind of delay. Just we want it to trigger instantly. And we're going to go to SimConnect. Okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to go pick. And again, this one's super simple. We've seen it before, the crash bar. And we do want it set to 1. 1 is up, 0 is down. Next, what we want to do, we want to set our source to the battery. But we want to have a little bit of a delay. I'm going to put a ½ a second delay between each command just to give them enough time to complete. You don't necessarily have to, but if you run into issues where you find that some of your commands aren't completing, try increasing your delay just a little bit, bring it up a bit until all of your commands complete in sequence. DCS World, for example, does have a little bit of trouble. If you just set all of these to 0 or super, super low, because it's operating on keyboard commands, it does sometimes have a trouble executing sequence. It was the same thing with other softwares that I've used in the past when it comes to DCS World and keybinds. So again, that's only ½ a second, guys. We're not talking about a critical, huge amount of time. So we're going to come back in here, and now we're just going to keep using this, and we're going to look for our source switch. And here we are going to go to LVARs, make it simple, and there it is, black square source switch. And for the source switch, we want 1. Now the black square source switch, wow, say that 200 times fast, has 3 positions. That's going to be 0 for off, 1 for battery, 2 for GPU. So keep that in mind if you want to bind those. All right, and that's how most LVARs will work. Some don't have a 0 position, some have 1, 2, 3, etc. So if you ever find yourself in that situation, it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., or it's going to be 1, 2, 3, etc. is usually how it works. But for most ones that I've ever seen, they use 0 and 1. All right, so there we go. We can see our value, crash bar 1, black square source switch, and now we need what? The generator, right? So the delay is delay from the previous command. So we don't want to set this at 1,000 to make it 1 full second. We want to set this at 500 milliseconds after the previous command. So we're going to go 500 again. SimConnect, pick, right? And this, we're going to go for generator this time. And there it is, black square generator switch. And again, we want 1, even though it is also a 3-position switch. So we hit save. And you can also see your commands there. The other cool thing that I'll show you guys that I forgot to is if you mouse over any of these, you can see what they are currently bound to. Even the sequence shows you guys what that is. So now when we trigger it, let's move HangarControl out of the way a little bit. And up we go. Boom. Now it's set 35 to shut it all down, right? So here we're going to go. Once again, edit sequence. We're going to add, and we're just going to zip through this real quick this time. SimConnect, pick. Let's see here. We want the crash bar. And this time we're going to want to set these to 0. Okay. We're going to add 500. Set these at SimConnect. All right. And then we want the source. Black square source switch. 0. And then we want add 500, SimConnect, and generator. And again to 0. We're going to hit OK and save, right? And that should be perfect, right? You guys probably thought I forgot. No, these are actually in the wrong order, right? We need to go the reverse of what we did before. So let's go back into the edit sequence. Here's something that's really cool that it's very easy to do as you guys are playing around with this stuff. We need to reverse all of this, right? We want the generator switch down, then the source switch, and then the crash bar comes down. So we can just highlight one of these, move it up, find our source switch, move it up, and boom, it's easy. Now you do have to change your times, right? So we're going to switch that out, and we're going to come down here and just change that to 500. Easy peasy, pumpkin seasy, whatever this phrase may be. There we go. So that is the basics. I mean, everything else from here on out, guys, you guys can pretty much put together. It's the same thing with your ailerons. We can go ahead and walk through that real quick. So we'll go here. If we want to go to our flight stick, we're just going to hit bind. We're going to hit add. We'll walk through this real fast. Sim connect, pick, and here we're going to come back and just do ailerons. And here we do want axis aileron set because it is a central position. Our control is in the center. So we're going to hit that, and we're going to hit use axis, 100%, hit save. Let's do the same thing for the elevator. Axis elevator set, use axis. Again, save. And if we come back in here, there we go. Nice and easy. Now, the other cool thing that you guys can do is inside of the axis tuner, you guys can set your curvatures. This is your saturation. What this is going to do, if you move the X saturation, it requires less input on your physical control to get maximum roll. Okay? And actually, I think something might not be working well with that, but we'll figure that one out. But the curvature, or a saturation Y, for example, if I set this all the way down here, oh, you know what? I know why. I'm an idiot, you guys. I'm sorry. Let's do this real quick. And I have to hit OK. Then if we hit axis tune, so as soon as we hit here, boom, it's at max. You do have to hit save. I'm used to doing this by myself, so I'm not watching it. Same thing if we do the saturation Y, we'll do the opposite. So if we hit OK, go back in there so you guys can see it. No matter, even I am at full motion. The red dot indicates your physical equipment. So I am at full rotation. You can see that it's barely moving. Okay, where if we kick it back up, hit OK, axis tune, you get that full rotation again. Curvature, same thing. If you want to curve, you want to lessen the curve. Okay, so this is going to require, you're going to get very limited action until almost the peak of your physical controller's ability. So watch it. And then as we start to rise, it gets far more extreme. Okay? But I recommend keeping those, for the most part, 0. And then, of course, if you need a dead zone, you guys can see nothing happens until we pass those lines. Okay? Dead zones are helpful, especially if you want to rest your hand on your controls and it's wiggling a little bit. This is a dead zone is what will help with that. All right, so we've saved all that. So I've shown you guys pretty much the basics of all of the controls. There are obviously there's a ton of functionality within inside of the LVAR and SimConnect bindings. You can set conditions and all kinds of cool things. With the button bindings, you have anything from short press, long press, release, your holds, your sequences. Your axis can be segmented, essentially creating sequences there as well. There's just a ton of stuff that you guys can do with this software, and there's more and more coming for it. The things that are still going to be added, remember, like I said, it will automatically change profile as long as you bind the profile to the aircraft. You have the ability to remove it by simply right-clicking if you wish. There's all kinds of really neat stuff there. The left, this is going to be all your games and simulators. Coming back here, you're going to have the application launcher that we've developed. You're going to have the mods manager or the mods hanger that's going to be here as well. There's going to be a couple other really neat tools. There's also in the settings, there's going to be an option to set your Microsoft Flight Simulator configuration file. It literally will open the config file. Like if you set a setting and Microsoft Flight Simulator keeps crashing. What spawned this for me, for example, this particular application that I've already written, it's already done, is I had changed from DirectX 12 to DirectX 11, testing something completely unrelated. And every time after that, the sim would crash, trying to launch on DX11. And so I had to manually go into that config file, change it back to DirectX 12. And that is what spawned the whole creation of this. Is like, you know what, let's do this. So now to talk about release, guys, it is imminent. And when I say imminent, I'm talking within probably 7 days maximum is what I'm hoping. The base software is pretty much done. Its third-party add-on softwares are basically done. You guys saw there's a couple little bugs. I need to go back and check what happened when we did that sequence the first time, if I selected the wrong thing or if it just didn't save on the first attempt. If it didn't save on the first attempt, that's something that I have to look into and obviously correct. Once everything locks in, I don't ever have any issues with it. I would say we are 97% bug-free. Obviously, when it goes public and you guys get your hands on it, there's going to be things that come up, unexpected variables, things that I didn't have a way of testing here. But it's going to be a very, very powerful software. It's going to be ever growing. Be sure to join my Discord, you guys, if you guys are interested in information on it. Once the software goes live, there is a portion in Discord for HangarControl. It will go live as well. And it will have feature requests. It will have bug reporting, general chat, things like that you guys can chat about that in there as well. So make sure that you guys join the Discord. All right. There will be multiple ways to contact me if you guys need support. There will be full documentation for this. There will be a support page on the website. There will be an automatic crash report generated by the software that you are able to send the crash report to me if it crashes or it has an error. And then, of course, I showed you guys the debug logs on top of everything else. That if you need to send me those manually, you'll have that option as well. So there's going to be a ton of different ways for you guys to reach me. There's going to be a ton of different ways to submit your problems. There's going to be multiple ways to submit feature requests. I'm going to be as communicative and as open as I can. And I promise the one thing that I'm going to swear to you is I'm never going to make you feel stupid or dumb or like you are a bother to me for reaching out for help. That is actually what spawned me developing this software. Was I got tired of those other guys that we won't mention their names treating people like crap. Like there's no way around it. That is literally the whole reason why I designed this software, is I got tired of that crap. And it wasn't me, just for the record. I've only ever had one interaction with their customer service. And they were okay, but yeah, I definitely caught the jackass, and it is definitely a culture in some IT industries, but I guess some developers need to remember that people who are buying their software are buying it because they enjoy flight simming, not because they are coders and professionals. So anyways, digress. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Hope you guys got the freaking hint. I'm coming for you. Anyway, as always, you guys, I hope you guys appreciate this video. I hope you're just as excited for the release of HangarControl as I am. It is very, very soon, very, very much so around the corner. If you guys wish to support this project and others, get ready to purchase it. It will be on sale very soon. And then, of course, if you want to support future development, please consider joining me on Patreon. To my Patreon subscribers, I love the hell out of you. You guys are the ones who really help make this happen. That revenue that you guys helped me generate is why I was able to take some time and really make this happen. I'm super excited. I love you all. YouTube, Patreon, doesn't matter. All of your support makes this happen, and all of you guys help contribute to me as a single father supporting my family, my children, and myself. And there's so much that's happened that I never saw coming. So I hope that this is successful for both myself and a way for me to give back to you guys as well. So anyway, I guess that was enough ramble on. Stay safe and healthy. I'll see you guys in the next one.